We're definitely super excited to be able to not only talk with you, but also to share and amplify the contribution that your father has made to video gaming, because it is immense and it's something that continues to bear fruit even to this very day. And more people are starting to learn about his contribution, but I think it's important that people know, especially Black and Brown people, know that once again, we were at the very nascency of something that's so critical to the fabric of how we move and how we live and interact with the world. And that, you know, it's not that we are absent from that. We're actually a part of the fabric of the origin story, if you will.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we're just kind of getting to know each other in the intro and everything, but I think it is immensely important for us all to know our history.
Exactly.
And, you know, part of what Anderson and I are doing with our foundation, the Lawson Foundation for Diversity and Technology, we put that foundation together to promote Dad's legacy by sharing his story to, you know, children of color, people in marginalized groups, to let them know that, hey, you can do whatever it is that you want to do. I don't care what your circumstance is. I don't care where you're from. I don't care how much money you have in your pocket right now. The point is that you are from greatness. Don't let anybody tell you different.
Exactly.
And you can be great too.
Yep.
Yep.
That's right.
And I'm just, like I said, when I saw what you all are doing as far as putting together a track or a curriculum, you know, a path to technology or to a technology career, that's exactly what the Lawson Foundation wants to drive people to do. You know, take a look at this. You see, this man did this in this time. You know,
exactly.
What is it that you feel that you can push yourself to do? It doesn't have to be gaming. We're talking about gaming now.
Right.
But something in the technology space.
Right.
Because even the pandemic has shown me something that, you know, I was kind of in front of it as far as entrepreneurial. But if you don't have your own game these days, you forget it.
Yep. That's right. That's right.
You can hang it up. And it's nothing wrong with having a 9-to-5 job. That's not what I'm jumping on. But the world is going in a completely opposite direction.
Right.
And people have to have a skill set that is mobile and is tangible and something that they can create income streams for themselves and their families and the legacies they would like to promote.
Exactly. So I think Anderson just joined us. How are you?
Well, how about yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're super excited to have you join us and share more about the foundation, the work that the foundation is doing. We're especially excited to have you with us on National Video Games Day, which is today. So that's super exciting as well. But I will, Erich is actually going to serve as moderator for the discussion. So I'll let him take it away.
Okay.
All right. There we go. Okay. Hey, everybody. First of all, I want to thank you guys for joining us, and I want to welcome everyone. We want to welcome everybody again. Hello, everybody out there that's going to see this and is has been joining us over these past couple of days. It is National Video Games Day. Today is September 12th. I'm Erich Thomas. I'm co-founder of Pharaohs Conclave, where we prepare youth for esports careers and also video gaming careers. Today we have an awesome discussion. This is our Pharaohs Conclave Black History Roundtable discussion. We're going to start doing more of these. We've done some of these in the past, but we're going to continue to do these, especially since with all of the partners that we've had come on board, this is turned from just a 3-day observance to a 75-day campaign. So we have lots and lots of other partners and other people we're going to be talking to throughout these next few days, but this is a good spot and a point for us to start with these two young people we have on joining us today. And a little bit about Pharaohs Conclave. A little bit about Pharaohs Conclave. Again, we prepare young people for esports careers in 3 different ways. First is Level Up Academy, our online learning platform. We teach tracks such as game design, professional gaming. We have a clinic track for that. Comic book creation, streaming, shoutcasting, digital marketing, social media marketing, esports journalism. So there are so many different things, and we're currently working on a few other tracks on the business side and also on the law side. That is something that we've noticed that needs to be there, and not just us but others in the industry as well. And so that's going to be coming real soon. So with this Black History Roundtable discussion, we're going to be talking about a young man in the 1970s that did something that was awesome, and we just so happen to have his children online with us as well. We have Anderson and Karen Lawson, and so we're just going to kind of jump right into it with some questions that I have, and this is going to be like a real nice conversation, and we're just going to kick it back and forth, and we're going to learn a little bit about everybody. So first, we're going to start off with introductions. So ladies, we're going to start with you guys as well, because my other co-founder, Jakita Thomas, is on the line as well, and we just want everyone to know a little bit more about you, because not only are we talking about Black and brown people, we're also talking about men and women that are in this industry and that are doing some wonderful things when it comes to technology as well and this industry. So first we'll start with you, Karen, and then we'll go to Jakita, and then we'll end with you, Anderson, if you don't mind. So Karen, if you can introduce yourself, and we also have one canned question that we do as well. Once you finish introducing yourself, I want you to tell us, when did you fall in love with video games? So you start with your introduction, and then you got to tell us when you fell in love with video games. Go ahead.
Sure. My name is Karen Lawson. I'm the firstborn daughter of Jerry Lawson, and I fell in love with video games in 1976 when my dad created the console game Channel F, which is the first gaming console to be created that used interchangeable gaming cartridges. So there was one particular game that I loved called Maze, and Anderson, and I used to play all the time on that. That's when I kind of was introduced and fell in love.
That is awesome. Jakita, go ahead.
Awesome. So I'm Jakita Thomas. I'm one of the co-founders of Pharaohs Conclave. And I first fell in love with gaming when I was in 2nd grade, sitting in front of an Apple IIe in my school's computer lab playing Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, which is still like one of my favorites, and the Oregon Trail. And that's when I first fell in love with gaming.
Good game.
Go ahead, Anderson.
All right. Anderson Lawson. I'm Jerry Lawson's son. To be honest, I can't tell you when I fell in love with video games. They've always been a part of my life, and I've always loved them. There's no moment in time where I could tell you. But I, honestly, the aforementioned games, Maze was an awesome game. We used to play the game until we caused the game to have bugs, which was kind of fun for us. And that's a story my father used to tell. And then, some of the other games that Jakita mentioned, she woke me up. I totally forgot about those. Where in the World was Carmen Sandiego? That was a great game.
Yes, it was.
I didn't say when I fell, and so the games that I played on Commodore 64. So we had the Apple II. We had the Apple IIs at school, but my dad got a Commodore 64 for the house. And one of the games, I still remember that floppy disk when we got it. It was Ghostbusters. There was an actual Ghostbusters game on floppy that we had, and it blew my mind. And it was before I even, because I went from the Commodore to the Intellivision made by Activision. I didn't have the Atari. We went Intellivision, and then I went to Sega, and then I picked up another Ghostbusters on the Sega, and it was eerily similar to my floppy, so I already knew how to play it. It was crazy. But I mean, you know, I did Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. The one I really liked was when they did the second version, Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego, and that was the one I really loved playing, because you know you got to get into the time machine, and so you know I was always a sci-fi nut, so that was right up my alley. And so from there, you know, I think everybody has that story, and we always start out with that question because we want everybody to know that they are part of this. And so now, can you guys tell us a little bit more about your father and how has he influenced you with where you are, with what you're doing now?
Anderson, you start with that.
Okay. So 1984. I was playing summer of 1984. It was Olympics were in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. I distinctly remember playing a video game all day. I think my cousin and I were playing an Olympics game on the television, I believe it was. And my father came over and said, "Why do you guys spend so much time playing the games?" Right? He's like, "Why, if you're going to mess with these games, why don't you figure out how to make them?" So he shut off the game and wouldn't let us play it. So we're sitting there like, what? And he goes into the garage and he comes out and he has this book in his hand and he throws it on the table in front of us. And it's 101 basic video games. And he says, if you're going to love games, you need to know how they're made. And he had a IBM business computer, one of the portable deals, and it's about as big as a small suitcase. He said, you guys can use this. He didn't show us where any of the compilers were, nothing. He turned it on, said, figure it out. And we had the book, and that's all we had. So my cousin, he's 14, I'm 12. So we figured it out. We found the compiler, we wrote a couple games in BASIC, and there were, I don't know if you guys remember Mad Libs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we took a Mad Libs game and turned it into something of our own, where you ask questions, you answer them, and at the end it gives you a story. But we thought it was so cool that we had done this in a video game. And so that was our first kind of introduction into programming. And years later, when I went to Morehouse, my freshman year, I was undeclared, but I was okay at math. And so the question was, what do I want to do? And I said, well, I thought to myself, what would I do for free? Well, I liked programming video games for free, so I figured I could program for free. Not how could I make a good living? It's what could I pursue that if it was free, I'd still have fun doing it. And then I've been doing it ever since. And that was in, 90. So here we are 30 years later, that's kind of how I got started.
It has flown by.
Yeah.
Karen, what about you?
As far as my introduction into technology, or just,
Well, a little bit of the introduction, but also how your father also influenced you, and then where you are now, and kind of a little bit of how that has guided you into what you're doing now.
I could have never dreamed that I would be here where I am in the space that I am right now. Because unlike my brother, I did not pursue technology as a career choice when I went to college. So in 1984, while he and my cousin were playing games, video games, I was actually at the Olympics watching in LA. So my track went totally different. But it's interesting how my career, I've been a teacher, I've been a project manager, and leading into now being a creative partner in a foundation. All of the things that I have done up to this point have set me up for this, but I didn't have the vision to know that that was what it was going to end up like. My father had always been encouraging and very straight up about what my opportunities were. And because I was a female, he never let that, color anything. So it was almost like, you know what, you can pretty much do what you want to do, but the world might see you in a different light. But I know that you can do whatever it is that you put your mind to. So he left it like that. So it kind of gave me kind of the freedom to say, well, if I'm interested in track, I can run track and get a scholarship for 10 years. If I'm interested in teaching, I can get a credential and go to teach for 5 years. If I'm interested in project management, I can do that. So I knew that I had a lot of talent, but didn't really lend itself to technology up until, I'd say, 10 years ago, right after his death. I just didn't consider myself somebody who was like, oh, I have technology. Blah, blah. I didn't have the vision to know that technology in our everyday lives would be so currently enmeshed, because I looked at myself as a people person. So I'm like, I don't see how, that blends. But everything that my father taught me about how the world is and how I can move in that world was the truth. I just took some time to really have to figure that out for myself. But I can pretty much say that the things that he shared with me were correct in that vein.
Awesome. And I like the way, even I remember my father did the same thing, and I know I've had discussions with Jakita, and she's talking about her father, as it relates to, doing these types of things, not wanting us to stop. But there was also another person in my household that that helped me see the world in a way that I needed to see it so I could conquer the world and take on the world, and that was my mother. And so I know we talk a lot, and we've talked a lot about your father, but what was some of the influences your mom was able to bring to the table as well? And I also want to bring in Jakita on that one too. So we'll start, Karen, we'll start there, and we'll go Anderson and then Jakita on that one.
My mother, Catherine Lawson, is and was the rock. So when I say the rock, I mean my parents had traditional roles in the household, in that, traditional for that time, in that my mom stayed home and raised the kids. This is what they decided before we were born, and she has been telling me this. And my dad was the breadwinner. So really, my mom held it down as far as household operations and, child rearing and all that stuff were concerned. And it gave my dad a stable base in which to work from, really. So I saw, even though when I was a kid, I didn't really see it as a partnership, because you're a kid and you're not looking at it like that. But now, in retrospect, I see it was a partnership. My dad, in that what he did, gave my mother the freedom to raise us and go to school. She went to college when we were kids. So we were in school and she was in school. After that, she went back to work because she worked before we were born, and she worked at HP, Hewlett Packard, for 15 years. So my mom was an example of, you don't have to just be one thing. You can do a whole lot of other things. So she was very practical, and she's a very private person. So I'll just say that.
Anderson, how about yourself? What influences, or what do you remember your mom contributing in your growth and what you decided to do and become, and the father that you've even become as well?
My mother spent a lot of time making sure I understood Black history, especially when I got to be a little older. I'd say, junior high and high school. And I remember a lot of times, even early on when we started to take Martin Luther King Day, we were trying to, you know, before it became a holiday, it was, well, you're not just taking this day off. You're going to be studying something, or you're going to get your butt on this freedom train and go up to San Francisco. It's like there was always something that we were going to, you know, that I had to be involved in. So, you know, that's kind of where, you know, I thank her for that, right? I think that that's a lot of the reason why I ended up going to Morehouse, believe it or not, right? It was you know, part of that, and then there, you know, a couple other individuals that, you know, I spoke with that made me want to go there. But that was kind of set the foundation.
Oh, that is awesome. And Jakita, I want you to talk about your dad and your mom, and I'm going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So go for it.
I'll start with my mom. My mother has always been my biggest cheerleader. Definitely, like you two have said, helped me to understand and believe that I could do anything that I set my mind to, that there were no limits. It was only the limitation of my imagination and how hard I was willing to work. And so she pushed me because she saw potential in me and has always seen potential in me, has always been my biggest cheerleader, always was my biggest cheerleader. We lost her 3 years ago. But she was like integral and pivotal into me being a critical thinker, being somebody that's an innovator. She was essential to me going to Spelman. I actually graduated undergrad with a computer science degree from Spelman. And so, so Spell House in the house.
Nice.
And she was integral with that. Spelman. That's all she used to talk about. And I remember as a child, I had my sights set on Harvard. And she talked about Spelman until I was in the 10th grade. And I was like, Mom, I don't understand why you keep talking about Spelman. I'm going to Harvard. And wisely enough, she stopped talking about it. And I came to Spelman on my own and completely fell in love with it. But she pushed me through graduate school, nurtured me, supported me. She was like the kind of person who could give you that kick in the pants, but at the same time, like nobody loves me like her. And my father, my mother and my father both worked. My father actually got his college degree a year before I was born. He was in the military. And so he was one of the Black soldiers who came home after the war and was able to benefit from the GI Bill. A lot of Black soldiers were not, but he benefited from the GI Bill and also attended a historically Black college. He graduated from Morris Brown College. He has always been the visionary. He is someone with very broad and long vision, and he's always encouraged me to have vision, because without vision, people perish. So, you know, making sure that I not only had that vision, but that I understood that it takes hard work to achieve and fulfill a vision. So I'm really, really grateful to my parents. Fortunately, my father is still here. He's still alive, loving on him and excited, you know, to watch him pour into my children. And my mom as well had an indelible mark on my children, even though they were young when she passed away, much younger. But just two amazing people who I feel did a great job. And honestly, if I can be half the mother and half the wife that, you know, she was, I think I would have done a magnanimous job. She has very, very big shoes. She left very big shoes to fill.
And you're doing a great job filling those shoes. I might.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
That's how you keep it, bro.
Hey, gotta get them points. Gotta get the points when you can. And it's so interesting. We have these stories are so common amongst us, and I would venture to say it's a lot more common than uncommon, which is opposite of the narrative that gets, you know, put out there about you know, Black children growing up, Black families. You know, my mother and father played two different roles, and it was interesting, and I didn't quite get to see it and understand it until I got older, of course. But my father started college, and he was an architect and he was an artist. So he started college, but but he stopped when they started having children. So it's just my sister and I. And so when my sister was born, he decided to go to trade school, and that's when he picked up his, certification to be an architect. And he was supporting the family from that side, and he did that for Lockheed, for the government here in Georgia, for many years. And my mother, she went back to school. She started at Clark Atlanta, then she left Clark Atlanta, and she had children. And then once the children were born, once we were there, she then went back to school, similar to how you guys' mom did, and she went into business at Georgia State. And so the stories I used to hear back from them, they integrated high schools in Georgia. They were very militant. My grandparents were very militant. And they always looked at the world as, okay, we could achieve things and we can conquer things and we can continue to elevate our people and put our people in a position to succeed. And so she went into corporate, of course, and so she worked for Bank of America for many years, which was CNS beforehand and Nations Bank before that. But she started on the human resources side, but she ended up being their diversity and inclusion officer and market president before she retired. And I got to see her in meetings as a Black woman around a bunch of men and white men mainly. And she, just to hear her talk and to hear her do different things, and I could understand, okay, if you knew you had the education, you had to have the confidence and the experience, you could command the room. And you could lead people to do what needed to be done, even if it was controversial, which she had a lot of controversial issues that she had to deal with, being diversity and inclusion officer and just dealing with human resources when it came to, the hiring of minorities in the workplace, when it came to women being in the workplace and how they were treated in the workplace. And I could just, and it was funny. I mean, I don't know. I tell this story all the time. At her retirement, I don't know if I've ever saw that many white men crying because she was leaving the company. She was retiring. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's a bad woman. That's a bad lady. They were literally crying tears, saying how they were going to miss her. And then how she's now during this time been able to, go into consulting around a lot of the issues that are happening to these businesses that we are now saying, hey, yes, Black people had this type of issues all along. And now y'all are just now figuring out that, you have to do something about it. And my father went back to school, graduated from Morris Brown as well, but I went to Tuskegee University. And so the year before I graduated, he was like, wait a minute, I cannot allow you to be the first Black male in our family to have a college degree. And so he said, so he got back in and finished his degree so he could get out before I graduated. And, I looked at that and I was like, there's no reason for me not to graduate, number one. But it was very encouraging and motivating for me. And so I was like, look, it can be done. But just to see those examples led me to say, hey, I want to make those same opportunities for young people that we continue to work with nowadays. The sky's the limit. There's opportunity and there's access, and I need to give access to these young people.